President Trump is trying to make it easier to build in locations where endangered species live across the U.S. He's planning to do this by overhauling the Endangered Species Act. It was established in 1973 to protect fish, wildlife, and plants that are listed as threatened or endangered. Under the act, any business or activity that harms a protected species would be a violation. Well, Tracy Wholf joins us now. She's the senior coordinating producer for the CBS News Climate Unit, becoming quite a regular here on the Daily Report, and we are grateful to you for that. So how exactly could the president make it so that you could build in areas where endangered species live?
So anytime industry or business wants to develop a building, wants to drill, wants to log, anytime they want to do some major economic activity, there's a host of environmental regulations that industry needs to abide by. What President Trump is trying to do here with the Endangered Species Act and with a lot of other environmental regulations is cut that red tape. So when the Endangered Species Act was established in 1973, the main framework of that act was to protect critical habitat for threatened and endangered species. And so what it did was it established the definition of harm, meaning you can no longer harm an animal if it could lead to that species extinction. Well, harm in this sense means building or destroying its habitat. When you look at why species go extinct, more often than not, it's not because we are hunting that species to extinction. It's because we're damaging critical habitat where the species lives that eventually renders the species extinct. So the whole purpose behind the Endangered Species Act was to conserve critical habitat. And what Trump is trying to do here is say, hey, I'm not saying that we're no longer allowed to kill these animals. I'm saying it's okay for us to go in and build in these critically endangered areas where these animals live.
So
and that's what he's trying to do.
What are environmentalists saying about this? Could this lead to more endangered or even extinct species?
As you can imagine, environmentalists are incredibly concerned. As we've seen with a lot of rollbacks of environmental regulation, there's a lot of different ramifications when we start pulling back these guardrails. Environmental organizations will fight tooth and nail. They will take the administration to court to make sure that these rollbacks don't happen. But they did say that should Trump get his way, specifically with the Endangered Species Act, we could see very long-term permanent effects of these rollbacks.
So we are expecting legal challenges.
Absolutely. I imagine that already that groups like the Center for Biological Diversity, they have been very forthright in trying to protect these species, and not just against the Trump administration. I should say that these types of battles, this has been a very political act for quite some time. And even under the Biden administration, groups were suing the Biden administration for his attempts to build solar panels on federal land because that was happening in areas where the endangered sage grouse lived, for example. So this is something that we've seen under many administrations, but this is the first time that we've ever seen a president just basically try to undercut the Endangered Species Act entirely.
Let's switch gears. Let's talk about two different rulings that were issued that stop the administration from terminating billions in climate grants. I've been reading a lot about this. Can you explain the decisions? What comes next?
Right. So like many things that the Trump administration has been doing, anything that deals with climate and money, they've been trying to freeze, rescind, and terminate. So there were two different lawsuits here by different environmental organizations that amounted to billions of dollars that had been allocated to grant recipients to do climate-based work. And so both
through the Inflation Reduction Act or multiple buckets?
Great question. It was both through the Inflation Reduction Act and through the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law Act. And so what both of these judges ruled is that the Trump administration and their related agencies like the EPA, Interior, Energy, the Department of Agriculture, they do not have the power to rescind money that had already been previously appropriated by Congress through these laws. And so what the judges are saying is you don't have the power to take this money away. You need to immediately start granting the recipients their cash.
But real world impacts, when you say recipients, these are recipients, farmers, for example, who have already done the work because they were promised the money, right? And so now they're literally just waiting to get reimbursed.
Exactly. I mean, this was money that was appropriated back in 2022, 2023, 2024.
So they decided, I'll put solar panels on my farm or something like that.
Yes, exactly. This is farmers or small businesses that had received funds to put solar panels. Maybe it was farmers doing regenerative agricultural practices to help prevent soil erosion. Maybe it was other small businesses that were looking to put water heaters, low energy water heaters in public housing, for example. So there's a lot of different recipients at play here. But again, this will get appealed, and I imagine we will see this back at the Supreme Court pretty soon.
And a lot of those people have been calling for those funds to be released. All right, we know you'll stay on top of it. Tracy Wholf, thank you.